Porton Dam was set up in 1916 to develop chemical weapons and to protect the British military from the effects of such ghastly means of conducting warfare. In the 50s and 60s, fears of a Soviet attack prompted a frenzy of secret scientific trials. Documents now declassified in the National Archives revealed that the public was sprayed with chemical compounds and bacteria throughout the West Country. Sprayings took place from the air, sea and on land. The public knew nothing about these trials. As information about the clandestine activities of government scientists emerged, campaigners like Mike Kenner from Weymouth became curious.
When you find out you've been sprayed, you want to find out, what have I been sprayed with? Is it safe? Did anybody conduct toxicity tests on it? And this is the reason why I got into my sort of research I was doing. So I started asking questions of Porton Down because I knew how to ask questions from Porton Down. John Major brought in this code of practice, 1994, which made it more possible for the public to be able to ask these sort of questions.
The quarry village of Westwood near Bradford-on-Avon. During the Second World War, these old mines were transformed into a hive of underground activity. Hundreds of people were relocated from the Midlands to work in a bomb-proof Royal Enfield factory. The wartime work was secretive, but what workers didn't know was that next door to them was even more sensitive government property. Underground tunnels were used to store priceless art treasures from the British Museum, whilst German bombers blitzed London. Works of art from Buckingham Palace were relocated and carefully stored in air-conditioned rooms. When the war ended, the pieces were moved out, but the government held on to the site. Scientists from Porton Down thought it was the perfect place to conduct their experiments, as this exclusive footage shows.
Technicians working in the test chamber during trial changed completely into protective clothing. This was not so much for safety as to avoid carrying heavy contamination into the lab area nearby, where the samples were handled.
During the 50s, there was concern that Britain's underground and transport system could be vulnerable to being sabotaged by terrorists, releasing toxic substances into ventilation systems. Scientists wanted to see if an attack was viable, so used a bacteria to simulate a more deadly biological agent.
The experiment involved the release of a bacteria which had been developed in America for the same purpose as a simulant for anthrax. The spores were much the same size as anthrax spores, and it behaved in the same manner. It was supposed to be absolutely harmless. It was supposed to be a harmless simulant, but in fact later research proved that in certain cases it wasn't as harmless as they'd first hoped.
For 50 years, these documents remained under lock and key.